Good evening, IL family. Happy Monday, and welcome back to your Inclination Life broadcast here with Coach Timiel slash Lady Timiel, where we talk about positive living via simple truths. I just want to say happy Monday. I missed you guys on last week, but as you can tell, I was on vacation. So I pray that everyone had a blessed week and a blessed time. I am definitely refreshed, rejuvenated, and I put on a post earlier this week on my personal page, refreshed until the next time, because I am expecting the next time. But one of the things that I've designated my Mondays to be is not only for the live broadcast, but I want to call but I'm beginning to call it Faith Talk Mondays, because the basis of Inclination Life is about faith. But I really geared this conversation to a faith talk each week with you, and so I definitely want to entitle this my Faith Talk Mondays as I go towards the end of 2019 and then into 2020. And the IO broadcast is actually going to be celebrating a birthday really soon, so I hope to be sharing some news and maybe something great for those of you that come in every week and watch with me, maybe a little surprise along the way. But tonight we're going to be talking about missing ingredients. That's the topic of the conversation on today. And so when I think about missing ingredients, where this conversation is actually coming from is as I one thing that I am noticing in my own personal life right now is I'm sensing a shift. I'm sensing a new season. I'm sensing an embarkment on something that is new. And so with that being said, not new in the sense of just a total revamp or total doing something different, but I'm sensing, have you ever sensed that there's something more you need to do, that there's something greater that needs to be done? And so when thinking about that, I was thinking about many of us who have been at this thing for a long time. And at this thing could be different for every last one of us. So the thing that you've been at for a really long time, that seed of faith that you've had in your belly for a long time, that you have just been waiting for the moment when God allows you to birth it, that thing that you have been mothering over and watching, that's on the inside of you, that you are waiting to come to fruition. Or maybe you have birthed it, but you're waiting to mature. You're waiting for it to matriculate to the next level that you are believing God for in your life. So this is who I'm talking to on tonight. This is my audience for tonight. I'm talking to people that have been at this thing for a while, and it seems like no matter what you're doing, that it just does not seem to work. It almost has you at a place where you all may see it as being stagnant. But I want to encourage you on tonight that if you've been at it and it seems like nothing is working, it seems like you've got all the right ingredients. And some of the ingredients I put here on my paper, I said, you've got God. One of the first things that when we think about missing components, the first thing people will ask you, especially to the believers, that do you have God at the center? So I'm talking to the person on tonight that you have God at your center. You know that you are walking this thing according to faith. You're believing God for the things that He has said unto you on today. I am talking to that person on tonight that you've got God, you've got you've got your mind, you're all in, you got the motivation to carry the seed out and see it to the end. Another thing I put here, you've got the faith, you've got wise counsel. You've actually talked to other people, you've actually talked to resources and sources and searched out maybe what someone else in the lane that you're going in has done. And so you've got everything, you've got all the right ingredients that really should make up a success. But yet and still, it seems like for some reason there's a missing component to what it is that you're doing, that you're not able to somehow forge forward to the very thing that you're missing, to the very thing that you're believing God for that seed that that is on the inside of you, for that next level that is expected in your life. The other day my husband and I were talking, and he said, I sense that you're in a place where you're tired of mediocrity. And not that I feel like my life is I wouldn't call it mediocre, but I would say in the sense, how you've been at a pace for a long time and you're saying, okay, God, I'm ready to shift gears. I'm ready to, take this thing on a little further. I may not be fully ready to go from 50 miles per hour to 100 miles per hour, but I'm ready for a shift. And so when we were talking about that, so that might be you on tonight, you're in this thing. You may not be in the necessarily birthing process, but you're ready to birth something. You're ready to add something on. And so I want to encourage you on tonight about that missing ingredient that seems to be there. I put here that you've even got attempts. Like, I'm not talking to the person that's just been talking in their head or talking to other people tonight, but I'm talking about you've actually put action into place. You've actually put action to the faith that you have in believing what you're doing. And so you've even tried in this situation, but things still seem to not be going forward. They still seem to be missing. I put here, there's something is missing. Something isn't just right. And the reason why I thought about a missing ingredient, because I thought about a chef when I really was thinking about this conversation. I thought about how some of the most world's renowned chefs take dishes that we eat every day and they take them to another level. And there's some component in there. There's always that secret ingredient, but they don't get to that thing overnight. They get to it by trying and trying and trying again. And so the thing about it is, when we've been at something for a long time, our response can often be adverse. After a while, it can become very adverse. One of the things that can happen to us is that we become very weary in the process. We tried and we failed. We tried and we failed. We've tried and we failed. We've taken every bit of advice. We've taken every component. We fasted. We've prayed. We've sown into it. We've done everything, and nothing still seems, it just seems to not be coming out just right. And so one of the things that can happen to us is that weariness. And I know we're all very familiar with the scripture that says, do not get weary in well doing, for in due season you shall reap a harvest if you faint not. Weariness is one of the things, I looked up the official definition of it, and it said that we're reluctant. When we become weary, we become reluctant to see or experience more of something. So sometimes the very seed that's on the inside of us, the very thing that we've been believing God for, the very thing that we've been looking forward to, and it seems like after failure and just failure over and over and over again, and maybe not complete failure, but it just didn't go quite right. It seems like after a time, this weariness causes us to get to a place where we don't even desire to experience it anymore. We don't even desire to see anymore. We don't want to go through the process anymore. We don't want to go through the trying anymore. We don't want to pick up all the ingredients that we know are working and look for another component to place in. But I want to encourage you on tonight, be weary, but please don't give up on tonight. The other thing that can happen to us when we're in this process where we're believing, but it seems like something is missing, is that pure frustration can come in. We can get frustrated to the point, when we look at that definition, it says upset, annoyed because of what appears to be an inability to change or achieve something. Now, I think I added that word in there about what appears, because frustration comes from the fact of us somehow believing that the very thing that we're believing God for is not going to come to fruition, is not going to come to pass. And so I want to encourage us on tonight, don't lose faith, no matter what you see, no matter how many obstacles are facing you. I don't know what your it is tonight. Man, I don't know what the missing component is for you on tonight. But what I will say is that I don't want to encourage you not to become frustrated in your process. I have to remind myself that ongoing. See, I'm believing God for some great things even in my very own life. And I was just journaling on today and I said, God, I'm still believing you for it. I still don't know how I'm going to get to it. I still don't know how it's going to happen, but I am believing you for it. And all I've got to work with is the ingredients that I have right now. So I've got to keep at it with the very ingredients that God has given me. And that's what I want to encourage you to do. The next thing, that the adverse reaction that we can have after continually going through this process, is we can have feelings of wanting to give up. I put feelings here because remember, I talked about some few weeks ago, I talked about maybe a moment is just a moment. I talked about our feelings and how temporal they is. We have to recognize that the feelings that we feel, they are fading. They go by from moment to moment. We may feel one way and the next moment we may feel another. We always have shifts and changes in our attitudes. You very rarely meet a person that is consistent with their attitude 100%. And sometimes they don't even know why. So I want to encourage us not to allow feelings and the things that we may be feeling, sensing in our hearts to allow us to make decisions. We cannot, when God is giving you something, when you've got a seed in you, when you've got something to birth, you cannot attach feeling to it. You can only operate in it through faith. The next thing I put here, another adverse reaction, is sometimes we just want to completely give up, throw in the towel. We know that's a big no-no. And the final thing I put here is sometimes our response is actually tabling it. We become so frustrated. We become so weary that we say, okay, I'm going to put this on the shelf. I'm going to put this on the back burner and I'll come back to it. Now, I don't see there's nothing wrong with taking a pause in your life when sometimes you've been editing. Sometimes you've got to step back from it. Sometimes I'm working on things and I'm creating things and I've been at it for a couple hours and I keep looking at it and it's just not looking quite right. And I'll step away, not long term. I'll step away for a little bit and I'll come back to it with fresh eyes, with a fresh mindset, with a decompressed mindset. And all of a sudden things begin to flow. So sometimes in your process, you're going to have to step away for a brief moment, but don't table it without ETA to come back to it. You got to have a time when you're actually an appointed time where you say, I'm going to get back to work on this. You may say, I'm going to take a day off. I'm going to take a week off. You may even need a month off away from it, but don't table it to the point that you don't absolutely have an absolute time that you're going to come back and work on the very thing that it is that God is giving you on today. And so I'll put here some things that we need to do. The first thing I put is try until we succeed. You've got to try until you absolutely succeed at it. It's that thing that says, if at first you don't succeed, dust yourself off and try again. You've got to do that over and over and over and over again. Our successes come out of our failures. We never know what we can do until we try. So you got to keep trying. You got to keep picking up those ingredients and maybe taking a little bit of this out and putting a little bit of this out. You got to allow the Holy Spirit to guide you with the tools that are in your hands to keep working at it, what it is that you are believing God for. The next thing I put here is that timing may be off or it may not be the right season. But you know what? I believe a lot of times we don't know what's the right season or what's the right time. And even when we're in that right season and that right time, we often still say, God, is this the right season? God, is this the right time? And so as long as you're constantly trying, as long as you're constantly going after it, as long as you're constantly approaching it by faith, I believe that you're going to be in action when it is your right season and your right time. So don't stop. Don't pause like that, believing that somehow you're going to get a signal that it's time to go. Because there's a quote I'm going to say at the end, and I believe action has to go along with this. The next thing I put here is believing your seed. I pray you're believing in it. I don't know what it is and I don't know what area it is in your life, but I pray that you're believing in the seed that God has placed on the inside of you. That if you don't have faith in it, if you don't have belief in it, you will give up. You will table it. You will become frustrated and you will not have the energy and the drive to do what it is that you need to do. The next thing that you need to do, I put here is check your climate. And there's several things in your climate that you need to check. I'm only going to list a few on them, but number one, check your mindset. Are you in the right mindset to keep going at this thing? Sometimes we need a regulation. When I went on vacation, that's one of the ways that I get the energy to keep come back at it with new eyes, with new mindset. Check your life. Is the life conditions around you suitable for you to continue in what it is that you need to do? And that's a whole discussion by itself. But check your life, because sometimes the frustration is coming because you're working against a climate that is not really set right in your life to continue working on the thing that you're believing God. The last thing in your climate that I put here is the people. Check your surroundings. Check if the people around you are conducive to what it is that you're trying to do. Now, look, I'm not going to tell you that everybody around you and in your camp is going to be like 100 pro on your team, but you got to be surrounded by some people that are cheerleading you on, that are saying that you can do it. You got to have that person. I always talk about this. You've got to have that person in your life that on the day you want to give up, they are the person that's going to encourage you to keep going. They are the one that believes in you after God, and then they're the next person that believes in what it is that God has on the inside of you. And so I put here for number 3, for my number 4 point, we're one ingredient away from momentum. And so when you think about a chef actually cooking, and I've watched shows, even seen it in movies where they have it based upon a chef, where they're trying to get this recipe just perfect and just right. And so they keep cooking the same thing over and over. They don't change the basis of it. They don't change the ingredients. They change the amounts of what it is that they put in. And then they may try one ingredient ingredient here or there, but they don't try 5 or 6 things at the same time. They put a little in here, a little in there, until they just get it at the right perfection. There's something they're looking for. There's something on their palate that they're looking for to taste. And I believe on the seed within you on tonight, if you're that person that you may be in a season where you're saying, I'm ready to push forward, God, and it just seems like there's something holding me up. There's some missing component on tonight. I want to encourage you on tonight to believe in the seed to the point that you have enough gas to keep going, to believe in the seed that you will have the energy that's necessary to keep at it. I put here, a chef takes ingredients and mixes them. There's no new resource. So you, in saying that, there's this thing that I always, that I talk about, probably mostly with my coaching group, but I talk about looking at what's in your hands. There's no new resources. The resources that are available to you are already here in this earth. They're already around you. A lot of them are already sitting in your hands. And so therefore, stop feeling like you got to go from the ground up. And when something doesn't work, you just put everything back on the table. It's like when you watched a kid build something with Legos and they would build something up and then it didn't quite turn out the way they liked it, or it didn't look quite the way, and you see them tear all those Legos apart and start again. They didn't go get new Legos. They just tore down and used the components that they already had. So use the things that are in your hands. The next thing I put here is understanding balance. One of the beautiful things, the chemistry about chefs, is they understand balance. They understand a little of this, a little of that. They taste something and they say, okay, I need to pull back on this, or I need to pull back on that. I believe that the missing ingredient may not really be missing at all. It may be that you just have the balances off. You may be putting too much energy in one area when you really should be putting the energy in another area. You may need to pour in a little bit more of something else when you need to pour back on something else. So let's just say, for instance, on tonight, the tools that we have, for some people, it may be a season of just really standing still and praying and seeking God for their next steps. For some people, it may be stepping out on the things that God has already told them to do in the first place. For another person, it may just be operating where they are until God says, okay, it's time to move and it's time to shift. But each of us has to figure out our balances, and that changes depending on the season and the time and where we are in our process. That changes and they rotate over and over. And then I put here, understanding that one factor that makes a difference in their dish and the next. So the thing about it is, I always want to remind us that there's something special and unique about us. As I said, the ingredients are already in the earth and everybody is using the ingredients. Remember at the very beginning of the conversation, I said that, you have God, you have momentum, you've sought counsel, you talk to people that are in the areas that where you're trying to operate at, the areas that God has called you to. But the thing about it is, there's something unique about you. And that's the ingredient that you have to figure out. You have to figure out what makes you unique, to the point that may be the very thing that causes you to have the momentum to go on to the next step in your journey versus what the other person is. See, I love to sit back and listen to people's success stories, but one thing that I realized about listening about what it took for one person to get to where they to versus me is that our paths are very different. And so I may be able to pick portions out of what you're giving me, but I will not be able to follow the model all the way through. Why? Because there's something unique. There's an ingredient in me that differentiates me from the next person. And it's the same for you on tonight. So I don't know what that thing is in your dish, because I don't know if the seed that's on the inside of you relates to you personally, something you have to do, relates to your marriage, relates to your home, relates to your children, your ministry, your business. I don't know what area it is that God has got something for you to do right now, and you're feeling like, God, I keep trying to do, I'm putting my all into this thing, but it's still not moving. I don't know what that is for you on tonight, but I believe you've got to ask God, what is that special ingredient that I am missing out? Or is there an imbalance? Or do I need to check my conditions? Is there something that I need to change with what you've already placed on the inside of me, with what you placed in my hands? The last thing I put here on tonight is that sometimes the ingredient isn't missing at all. I I believe that when God gives us something, when he places a seed, when he places a desire in us, that he gives us what he gives us is a complete package. We may have to figure out how it all works. We may have to mature sometimes into some places in what it is that God has given us before we can actually utilize it. One of the interesting things as I was studying about chefs on tonight, and they were talking to, like, if you're home cooking, you want to kind of cook like chefs. They gave simple skills like practicing your knife skills, or how you chop up things, or blending more, or doing things that really how chefs take a normal dish and elevate it, then beginning to practice these things. And so in saying that on tonight, I want to encourage you that as you look at the ingredients that God has already give you, practice with those things. Elevate those things, make those things better. There was a quote that I found from Colin Powell, and he says, there are no secrets to success. It is the result of preparation, hard work, and learning from failure. I'm going to say that again. There are no secrets to success. It is the result of preparation, hard work, and learning from failure. So we're always looking, especially for those of us that are believing God to succeed in the areas that he's called us to. We're always believing that there's some mystery, there's some secret. God has already unfolded the mystery to us when he gave us the Holy Spirit, because the Holy Spirit leads us into all truth, and he unfolds every mystery that we would ever have to understand at the moments when we need to understand them. And so when we think about being successful, I'm not talking about in business terms, I'm talking about on your faith walk on tonight. When you think of terms of being successful and seeing that seed, maybe it needs to be birthed on tonight. Maybe it needs to mature. Maybe it's ready to grow to the next level. When you have that on tonight, know that it takes preparation. So remember when I said to keep going, even whether, keep doing something, no matter whether it's the proper season or timing, so that you be ready when God would say that it's time to shift. That's what I was talking about, that preparation, continuing to go. Know that it takes hard work. I know we live in a microwave society where we want things overnight, and sometimes God does endow us with things and blesses us and shows us the favor that gives us something in an instant, or he fast forwards things in our lives. But a great deal of it, if we really look at it, we've sown seeds for years and they just seem to come up in an instant. So it takes hard work. Everything that I called out tonight, every area that I called out tonight, and those areas I did not even call out, it takes hard work. The other thing is it takes learning from our failures. If you are afraid of failing, you will never succeed. So in order to get to what it is that God has got for you, in order to birth some things, you're going to have to go through some failures. You're going to have to go through some trials. You're going to have to go through some tribulations, but you're going to have to go through trying something and it doesn't work. Trying another thing and it doesn't work. I can tell you, even in my process, I have tried things over and over and over again. And sometimes I'll go through seasons where it seems like everything that I touch is golden. And then sometimes I'll go through seasons where it seems like everything that I touch, it rots. But the thing about it is, faith says don't give up until I get to what it is that God has promised me and the things that I am believing God for. Because I'm not only believing God for something for me personally, I'm believing God for what's on the inside of me, because my seed is not just for me. Your seed is not just for you. Our seed is that God will be glorified. Our seed is there because it's going to help somebody else. It's going to be a blessing to somebody else. And so the thing about it is, when we get frustrated, when we abort those things, we not only give up on ourselves, we don't only give up on what God gave us, but we give up on the very blessing that it was intended for other people. So let's be responsible on tonight. And so I want to encourage you, don't give up. The ingredient that you believe is missing may not be missing at all. Do like the kids do. Take that Lego thing and throw it down to the floor, but pick up those same ingredients and ask God, what is the balance that I need to try? Do something different. Try something different, but try until you succeed. So I pray that this conversation has been encouraging for you on tonight. I want to thank you for tuning in with me, and I hope you'll tune in with me next week as we have another conversation about positive living via simple truths. Have a good night.